is Frederick Watts.
This is Gene Watts.
And
this is Love in 60 Seconds.
We have been married for over 20 years.
And in that time, we have learned a few things that we'd like to share with you.
So if you're single, newlyweds, or seasoned in marriage, we think you will enjoy the upcoming program.
Absolutely. And we want you to like, engage, share, and do all of those wonderful things that we do on Instagram, Facebook, and every other social media outlets. Send us DMs. We want to hear from you.
This is
Love
in 60 Seconds.
60 seconds. Love in 60. Love in 60 seconds. 60 seconds.
Hello everyone. Hopefully you can hear us. Oh, we got a little bit of echo, but it's all good.
Guys, how you doing tonight? So we're just waiting for everybody to join us, and hope that you can hear us this evening. We're testing our sound out before we start. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We got a good lesson for you this evening. Do you hear anything on your phone?
No, I don't, because I
All right.
turned my sound down, so I don't hear anything.
I want you to listen. So, yep.
That's
We're
good.
doing some different stuff, but we hope that you guys have been well. We got a good topic for you tonight.
Yeah, we do. It's going to be great stuff. We're dealing with a lot of DMs and people that have been reaching out to us. I've been super busy with work, so we apologize. I apologize. My husband's been busy with work too, though, so we haven't been able to be on live, but we have been sharing some of our past times that we've shared, so I hope you've been enjoying that. But tonight we're live, and we're going to talk about our flesh tonight, because that flesh, oh my gosh, it will forsake you.
The flesh monster.
The flesh monster.
It's a monster. So we do appreciate you guys tuning in. Please like and share this with everybody. Come back and watch it, and definitely engage with us. And we appreciate you watching it either on our watch parties, but as always, you can follow us on at WhatsApp Entertainment on Instagram and on Facebook.
Yep.
So we're going to get into a topic tonight. We talked about it being a flesh monster and how it relates to marriage. And we had put up a post earlier today, and it talked about what a man is, and basically how it is with said that David was the man after God's own heart.
Yep.
Solomon was the strongest, was the wisest man. Samson was the strongest man in the Bible. Yet they all had issues with infidelity, and in that issues, and they struggled with it. And not only did they struggle with it, but they lost to that struggle at some point. So
it cost them. It cost them greatly. And it wasn't just infidelity, but it was just sexual sin and lust, and it caused temptation, and it caused them to lose greatly. I mean, for example, David was not allowed to build God a house because he had blood on his hands, because he killed Uriah. He just, he was not able to do some of the things that he wanted to do, and even the birth of the first son that he had with Bathsheba, that child died. Right. So it was a lot that was attached to the cost that the enemy never shows you. There's a price that has to be paid.
There is a price, and even though that price has to be paid, God is still faithful.
Absolutely.
He is faithful, and even at our lowest point, God is always at his highest point. So we wanted to talk to couples tonight and those in relationships that are struggling, and even having the issues of dealing with the flesh in their marriage, that God is definitely faithful, that he's able to bring you out. But we want to talk about a little bit of how it pertains to our everyday relationships.
Absolutely. And we before we even get into it, and we're praying, and we prayed earlier today that God would just give us wisdom and lead and guide and direct us. But we talked about that payment, that the wages of sin is death. It demands a wage. Jesus paid the price for us, but we have to walk in the way that we allow him to pay that price. Right. What we allow, but if we do not allow him to pay the price for us and submit our sins to him and our shortcomings, listen, sin is going to have its due. Right. It's going to have its wage, and it's going to cause death.
And it's a price that we can't pay ourselves.
We cannot pay it.
And sometimes I quoted that sometimes good people do bad things.
Yeah.
And we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And even in marriage, when you make mistakes, you can recover from bad decisions and bad mistakes. Infidelity is not always the end all for marriages. Making bad financial decisions is not the end all for marriages. It's just people struggle, and you have that time. So, let's talk a little bit about how that relates, to what we're talking about tonight, which is that flesh monster. And I was looking, it's not really a Bible study tonight. We're just going to chat, and please feel free to have comments and engage with us. We're definitely watching on our watch parties. But one thing about Samson, that when I talked about Samson was the strongest man. And when I started reading about Samson a lot, even though he was a strong man, and that strength was something that God gave him.
Yeah.
So it's a gift. So in marriages, we have gifts.
Yeah.
And God has given us gifts from just our spouse and our children, but every other aspects. And one thing that God does not want us to do is to abuse our gift.
Absolutely.
And Samson was a Nazarite who had the gift of strength. And one of the things that Nazarites did is that they didn't cut their hair, they didn't drink, they didn't go and deal with dead things.
That's right, they didn't touch dead things.
But that Samson broke those rules all the time.
Habitual line stepper.
Habitual line stepper.
Do you have somebody in your life? Is your wife, is your husband a habitual line stepper?
Always crossing the line.
Always, and if they don't cross it, they so close to that line. Actually, I had one of my sons in some things about the family rules who wasn't a habitual line stepper. and so many times he is going to walk on that line and just do it habitually. But some of us in our relationship, in our marital relationship, we are habitual line steppers like Samson was. He was not always walking, and he was consistently feeling like he was in control, but he did not realize that he wasn't.
Right. And that's because of what he was attracted to.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times, we are attracted to things that aren't good for us. Samson was attracted to violence. He liked to turn up. He liked to fight. He liked to get it on. And because of that attraction, there were certain things that came with that decision to go after those attractions. And even in marriage, if you are not attracted to your vows, which is to love and to hold, what else is to love and to cherish, till death do us part, all those things. If you start being attracted to other things, especially in society. Society always has the bright lights and, what they say it should be good. But I challenge you as believers, as Christians, to be able to say, are you going to listen to what society says about relationships and marriage, or are you going to listen to what the Creator who created marriage says about relationships and marriage?
That's good. And
that's very important, because the culture can't know or can't understand really what it didn't create.
Absolutely. It cannot understand the fundamental values fully if they did not create those values. So again, certainly Samson and his idea, and like I said, we talked about it earlier as we were studying for this, but he was just, he kept saying, she would say, Samson, where's your strength? And he would say, it's in my feet. It's in my hands. And the thing was, he thought that he had it under control. And a lot of times people feel like they have it under control. You have it under control that you're having an inappropriate conversation with a coworker. You have it under control that you have an inappropriate relationship with someone else in your family or in your community. He felt like he had it under control. But what you don't understand is that somebody who is trifling, they're going to keep knocking.
Right.
They're going to keep trying.
Right. So in marriage, when you're struggling with those things, don't let your attractions control your actions. You have to understand that everything that, what is attraction? Attraction is basically the power of evoking or interest and pleasure or liking someone or something. So attraction isn't always just a beautiful woman for a man or something visually. It could be attraction to money, power, anything in your relationships. So it's important that that you understand what the power of attraction can do and what the power of attraction is. And sometimes just putting value in that attraction can put us in a place that we not focus on what our goals are in life.
Absolutely. You're not focusing on not only on what your goals are and what God intended for you to have or what you're building. Samson, he did not focus on what he was building. He didn't focus on building a life. He just wanted to lay in Delilah's lap and play games. Because that's what he did. He played games. Yeah. He felt that he was in control. He felt that it's okay for me to talk to this person inappropriately. It's okay to be, because I know what I'm doing. I'm not doing nothing wrong. It's not really wrong. I'm just doing, and I got control of this. I know what I'm doing. And then before he knew it, he had his hair cut off and his power gone. And when he got up, the Bible says when he got up and she said, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. She had said it, I don't know how many times, but he got up this time and he shook himself and he didn't have what he had before. He had lost something in the night. That's right. And many people have lost something in the night.
And the funny thing is because a lot of times marriages struggle is because they don't know their enemy. Yeah. They don't know what the enemy of marriage is. Sure. And the enemy of marriage is the enemy, the devil, Absolutely. And he never just, to most 99% of people, when they get married the first day, the second day, they're not thinking about being with nobody else. Nope. But their spouse. But over time, and how the enemy works, he's just not going to present that to you. Just like that normally. What he's going to do is he's subtle. His job is to present you with options. Yeah. And he's real subtle about it. And that options are just things in your life that you might not even know that you were attracted to. True. Because when you let your guard down or if you're isolated, he'll be like, what's some options? Hey, why don't you just have a conversation with the opposite sex person about your marriage? Just simple. You're frustrated. It's just, just share your frustrations. Yeah. You gave me an example earlier about the jelly bean.
I said, you eat, red jelly beans all the time. Red jelly beans are good. They're your favorite. But, he said, there's a green jelly bean right here on the ground. Pick it up. Just put it in your pocket. Don't even eat it. Just put it in your pocket. That's not hurting nobody. You picked it up. You put it in your pocket. Yeah. That's not hurting anyone. You carrying it around. Then after a while, you got this jelly bean in your pocket. You're looking at it. I wonder how this jelly bean tastes. Right. I'm just going to lick it. That's all. Yeah. And then I'm going to put the rest of it back in my pocket. I'm just going to taste it and see what it is. Right. And then once you lick it, you have opened up your appetite to something that is not what you should be having. Right. Yeah. And then not only that, you done licked something that's full of germs and disgusting, and you don't even know that you have gotten a hold of something that's not good for you. Right. And everything that tastes good ain't good.
Ain't good. And you didn't even know that you had a desire for that flavor.
You developed that appetite.
And you didn't develop it overnight. You developed it because you held on.
You held it on.
You kept it was in your pocket. You kept it in your pocket. And that's the same thing with relationships. You have to understand how the enemy works. That it's subtle. When he presents you with subtle things, you have to have some type of foundation to protect your marriage. And that's what we talked about all the time, building fences. Yes. Wearing your wedding ring. Yes. Allowing your spouse to have access to stuff. Communicating with your spouse.
And not having sidebar conversations with other people of the opposite sex. Right. I don't care how great you are. Mm-hmm. I don't care how solid you are of a person. I'm solid. I know I'm solid. I know I'm solid because I love the Lord. I love me. I love this man. I love my children. I would not do anything to intentionally jeopardize them. Mm-hmm. But I'm also smart. And I'm smart enough to know that I'm not going to be having sidebar conversations and developing a inappropriate and a deep or an intimate relationship. And it doesn't have to be intimate physically because it never really starts off like that. Right. But I'm not going to have an intimate relationship talking about my personal feelings about whatever's in my heart. Even if it's not even about my husband. Mm-hmm. I'm just talking about my dreams. Right. I'm not talking about my dreams and my goals to you. I don't know you. And you might meet my brother at church, but I'm not talking about my dreams and my goal. I may say one day I want to have a business, or one day I want to sell all the real estate in the world. Mm-hmm. But I'm not talking to you. I'm not opening up myself to that vulnerability because That is an avenue that the enemy uses as a small thing. It's a little fox.
Right.
It's a little thing, but the Bible says it's the little fox that destroys the vine. So you can't get in there and start having a sidebar conversation with someone, and then later on, you look up, you sleeping with that person.
Yeah. And just like, we talked about Samson, we talked about Solomon, and Solomon being one of the wisest men, or the wisest men in the Bible. And going back to even Samson, because of his appetite or his attraction for violence, it kept bringing stuff on him. Like, he read one story where he tied 300 foxes together, set their tails on fire, and burn up the Philistines' bushes or their crops.
Yeah.
Who does that?
You got a mental problem.
The dude was crazy a little bit, but that brought repercussions.
It did.
Because of his appetite. And so when you don't know what your appetite is, or you don't know what to do with an attraction that you have, it can become a distraction.
Absolutely.
And when it becomes a distraction, I like what you said earlier, attraction plus distraction will equal subtraction.
Absolutely.
And the reason is because the Bible says there are wages for sin. And a lot of times when we make mistakes, we don't always pay the consequences immediately.
Yeah, most of the time it's not, because the enemy, that's how he gets you. You feel like, I kind of got away with it. Okay, it's kind of okay. Or I'm okay doing what I'm doing. I'm going to do me.
It's not hurting nobody.
I'm doing me right now. This is what I'm doing. I'm okay. I'm making this decision. I don't want to make no other decisions right now. I'm in charge of me. And no, you don't pay immediately. But I promise you, my brother, my sister, you are going to pay. You're going to pay for that decision. You're going to pay doing things and in a way that the cost is so high. The enemy never gives you what the real price of that situation is. And unless you let God come in and realize and recognize and relinquish that sin, relinquish that work of the flesh back to God, and take his payment for it, you're going to pay. And even a lot of times when you do, because there is consequences to every action, or there are consequences to every action, even if you don't pay all of what is due, and you give that to the Lord, many times there are consequences that you have to pay, that you just, whether or not, and you may get your family back together, but you got to suffer the consequences of your husband not trusting you, not believing in you initially, and having to grow through that again. You know what I'm saying? That's a consequence. You might have got your marriage back together, but you got consequences.
That's right. And every attraction, when you don't know how to curb your attraction or your desires, it'll lead to a subtraction. And it's not even just in your relationship, but it's in every aspect of your relationship. Sometimes, and then how many times have you looked back over your life and be like, you know what, right then that mistake caused me to have this consequence that I had now.
Yeah.
And like we said, it's not always right then when you have that, when you make a decision or you do an action, it's usually later. And that's even in your communications and your relationships. Our actions causes reaction. If you are talking crazy to your husband or to your spouse, then your spouse is probably going to have some type of reaction to your action, to your desires. It's communication. It works on your job. If you talk crazy to your boss, or if you're a boss and you talk crazy to your employees, they're going to have a reaction to that action.
Absolutely.
And that's very important. So you have to watch how you communicate. You have to make sure that you're communicating with your spouse, in an appropriate way, that you are cutting off stuff, because always those are fences. And fences are set up to keep stuff in your marriage and to protect you from things outside your marriage that can do harm. And a lot of times, especially in men, how the enemy works is that he tries to isolate you. Oh, you're the only one experiencing this. You're the only one that's did this. You're the only one that's made no mistake.
Understand.
Don't nobody understand. Nobody listen. You start cutting your friends off. You start cutting off people that love you. Start cutting your spouse off. And then what he does, he starts bringing fear in, start bringing doubt. And that's how he works. So if you understand how he works, then you're able to fight better. And that's really important. So if you don't know what to do as an attraction, is going to end up being a distraction,
Yep.
which is going to lead to subtraction. Because sin has consequences.
Absolutely, and you're gonna pay. And many people, just like I said, we talked about David, we talked about Samson, we talked about Solomon. All of them lost significantly because they could not manage. They would lose their head over a piece of tail. Unfortunately, my mother used to say that all the time to my brother. She would say, "Don't lose your head over a piece of tail." Just don't do it. And I know that sounds kind of blatant. That sounds just kind of like raw, but it's facts. It's facts. Don't lose your head over something that's not, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And that's not meant for you. But they lost greatly things that they would have desired in their heart to do, but because they did not obey God and obey His commandment to how to manage our flesh and how to manage this body, they lost. And every time there's a loss. Every time you do it, it is a loss.
And now we are going to talk about there is grace.
Absolutely.
There are things that God does because He paid it all that can rebound us from a mistake.
Sure.
But one thing in life, if you can go through life without making certain mistakes because you have wisdom or experience, or not making the mistakes over and over again, like Solomon, as wise as he was, all the things that he gave us, one thing that I found out today that I didn't realize is that when Israel asked for kings, dealing with Saul, God gave them a blueprint of what a king should do. And out of all the things that what a king should and should not do, the one thing that God said that was most important was that a king should not have a lot of wives, should not marry strange women, should not build up wealth that wasn't for the intent of his purpose. And one of Solomon's downfall, as wise as he was that having all those strange women,
a whole host of them.
And a lot of times men, we think that we got it all, that we in control, but that woman, that especially what you call the feisty, or that the woman that's trying to get
trifling,
that trifling woman, is trying to get you, because a woman's job, starting with Eve, was what? To feed the man.
Absolutely. A woman's job is to feed the man. She's first of all, she's the helper. So she is there to continually help to pour into him wisdom, to help to pour into him not just natural sustenance. Right. And the first thing that Eve did, or the first woman did, she fed Adam. And so she fed him of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. She should not have done that, but that's what she fed him. But the enemy, that's how he works. He would have never approached Eve had Adam been there.
Right.
He would have never, because there would have been too many opportunities for Adam and Eve to be there together and for the enemy to approach. But he didn't do that then. He waited until Eve was isolated and alone. That's what the enemy does. Whether you feel like you're alone in your relationship, or you are actually alone, or he gets us during this time, during this pandemic, and you're not around people or those that are good social influences or good spiritual influences, and you get you alone and isolated. And then once he gets you alone and isolated, then voila, why not do this? That's not a big deal. You're not gonna die. Nothing is gonna happen. Yeah. And that's what he said. And so when he did that, he sold that lie to her because she was isolated and alone. As soon as she got the opportunity, she fed it to her man. She fed that. But women, even trifling women, it's their idea to feed, to give, to nurture. And that's like the same thing with Delilah. We talked about her. Samson kept coming laying in her lap. And he knew each time that she betrayed him. Right. Each time he knew it. But she tested him. But he thought he had it under control. Yeah. And that is the downfall. Many of people think that they got it under control. They think that they got themselves together. They think that they in control of the situation. Ain't nobody gonna pull no wool over their eyes. They're not going any farther then they want to go. I'm not going no farther. I'm only doing this. I'm only going to talk to them. Never going to kiss this person. Never going to be behind closed doors with this person. I'm never going to spend all the money. I'm never going to do whatever it is. I'm in control. Your flesh cannot be trusted.
It cannot be trusted.
Cannot be trusted.
It cannot be trusted because that flesh is a monster.
It's a monster.
And that's why the Bible talks about the flesh and the spirit always warring against each other.
It is warring.
And the reason why is because the flesh has 70, 80, 90, 50 years on this earth, and then it's done. Where your soul has the eternity to deal with what your flesh does.
Absolutely.
So that's why they're warring against each other.
The deeds in this body.
Yeah, because that flesh, that spirit has to spend eternity somewhere. And so what we're trying to tell you today is that when you know, don't let the enemy isolate you. Don't let him be subtle in your life, because especially if you're dealing with things like infidelity. You know, a lot of times it's when a man has dealt with is dealing with that, or he is the offender and has gone out and done that. You, as counselors and as coaches, there's always been some trigger that had done that, whether he watched porn secretly, whether he didn't communicate how he felt with his wife, whether his spouse was doing things that he or did not like, talked to him a certain way, or whatever it is, those excuses.
And he or she never expressed it.
They never communicated. They never gave into it, so they isolated and then went after other desires, their attractions, their other things that they couldn't control, and it was subtle.
And they went to be fed somewhere else.
They went to be fed somewhere. They went and to get fed. But you know, and because of that brought a consequence. So what the good thing about it is that, you know, no matter what you may be experiencing in your marriage that is trouble, God is fighting for your marriage.
Yes, He is.
And that, you know, if you desire it, and that if you are willing and able, God can turn anything around.
Yes, He can.
According to your faith.
Yes,
you know,
He can.
even if you're dealing with loss, even if you're dealing with pain, even if you're dealing with infidelity, God is able to turn things around. And one thing about, you know, all these men were great men. Samson was a great man. He was a great judge. Solomon was wise. David had the heart. You know, he was after God's own heart.
Absolutely.
And they made these mistakes, but they still rebounded.
Yes.
Because, you know, once you realize that God is not going to let you continually abuse your gifts.
Right.
You know, so Samson's gifts was strength. He kept wrecking. He kept acting up, you know, being a fool. And even though at the end, Samson killed more people, more Philistines ever when God gave him his strength back at the end of his life. But he had to pay with his life to get that redemption. Because he abused his power. So don't abuse your spouse. Don't abuse your children. Don't abuse your gifts.
Right.
Because he won't take those gifts away, but he'll demand a wage for you abusing those gifts.
Absolutely. Well, and then sometimes if you do not surrender, those gifts can be taken away. That you know, that wife can be taken away. That husband can be taken away. Those children can be taken away, and taken away in the sense that they no longer have honor for you, that they no longer have respect for you, that they no longer have love for you and devotion for you, or serve you. And that goes both ways, men or women. You know that, you know what I'm saying, that they have that feeling for you, and you can definitely lose in that manner.
And you can lose and they still be in the same house.
Can lose and be in the same house. And you can
still be married to your spouse and have the consequence of losing your gift because they tuned out.
Yep,
you know,
they tuned you out.
Yeah, because they don't honor you, because you abused what they were. And
so they're just there going through the motions, and you don't want that either, because God's desire for you is to have a fulfilled marriage, to have a loving, happy marriage, to enjoy your spouse and say, I really love you. I really appreciate you being here. I'm just glad that you're mine. I'm glad that I'm yours. I'm glad that we're building this life together, and that we're going to stay solid, and we're going to make something big. When we check out of here, we're going to say, you know, we're going to be like, oh, it's out. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be big and grand, and our grandchildren and everybody will be around, you know, that kind of thing. You want to continue to build, but the enemy, the only reason he comes is to kill, steal, and destroy. Right. But Jesus says, I came to have life, and that you might have it more abundantly. Right. And so, you know, no matter what you've done, where you are, what mistakes you've made, if you've been tricked, if you've been bamboozled by the enemy, or bamboozled by some dude with swag, or some chick, that would normally, it don't even be with swag. Normally when you look back on it, when you open up your eyes and God opens your eyes and allows you to see, you normally in the pig slop, like this prodigal son. He in the thing with pigs,
Right.
and that's normally the case. You look at that person, you're like, what the world? I done left my beautiful, talented, wonderful spouse for this.
Right.
For this, what did I do?
Right.
And it's too late. I'm all messed up. But the thing
It's
is,
not
the
too
potter's wheel is always there.
Yeah.
And yes, we are sometimes marred vessels, and we're hurt or we're wounded or whatever the case is, and we kind of feel like we're too far off. But you're never ever too far off. You're never ever too far gone, because the potter's wheel is always there,
Yeah.
and he's able to melt that clay down and make something beautiful again.
Yeah, that's good. And so even at your lowest point, God is always at his highest point.
Absolutely.
And because even when we're at our lowest, God still loves us, and he's still faithful, and he can most of all still use us. You can
Yeah.
bounce back from infidelity in marriage. You can bounce back from losing all your money.
Yeah,
You can bounce back
yeah.
from everything. And I like that example about the potter's wheel. But the first thing for bouncing back is being willing to get on the wheel.
Yeah, you got to be
And
willing.
trust me that, and when we counsel and deal with people, especially, we're talking about flesh, everybody relates it to infidelity a lot, and that's definitely something.
Yeah, but it's not
is
everything.
But it's not everything. But one thing that you have to do when dealing with infidelity, you have to be two things. The offender has to be willing to submit,
Yep.
and the offendee has to be willing to forgive.
Yes.
And when you submit, that means you're putting yourself on that potter's wheel for God to do a better work in you.
Yep.
So you're going to be crushed. You're going to be molded. You're
Yep.
going to be burned. You're going to
Spun around. You're gonna be
all that
and just, what do you call it? Kneaded
Yep,
together and
kneaded
just
together.
and squished and
but you
uncomfortable.
But when you're coming through that, you're going to come out a bit better. You're going to come
Absolutely.
out, and because you've been touched by the Master himself.
Absolutely.
And when you're able to do that, then your spouse is able to look at you in a different way, to be able to forgive. Sometimes they may not forget.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a while to forget. But when you're willing to, in infidelity, make that change
Yeah.
and commit to it 100%, then you're giving your spouse the power that they need to move forward,
Yes.
to forgive,
Absolutely.
to understand, and to start again. And you can bounce back from it.
Absolutely.
But because, God is able to do exceedingly and abundantly more than we can ask or think.
Yes, he
And so we're here to tell you today that no matter what you are dealing with, and if you made mistakes or you're dealing with the flesh monster, God is able to restore. You just have to put in the work. And don't think, especially when you talk about men, look at all the great men in the Bible. They definitely had their consequences. They had their experience. But even out of all that, in the end, God was faithful.
God was always faithful.
God
And
was
he's going to
always
be faithful whether, you're watching this today. This is 2020, August, the last day of August, right?
It's the last day of
2020. We're in the midst of a pandemic, because I don't know if you're watching this 10 years from now or whenever it is, but whatever you find yourself in today, you are, if you're willing, on the potter's wheel. If you're uncomfortable, you feel broken, you feel hurt, you feel squeezed, you feel pressed, you feel stretched, you're on the wheel.
Yeah.
And if you stay on the wheel, he's going to make something beautiful in the end. Stay on the wheel. It's the wheel is uncomfortable. You spin it around and somebody's doing all kinds of stuff. And then you got to go in the fire after that to be solidified. But you'll come out pure. You'll come out better. You won't come out bitter. Your marriage, your life, your love will be better if you will yield to God. And there's things that he and I have gone through. We're better today because of it. Because we committed to be on a potter's wheel, because we committed to be broken. We committed to be healed, though, also, and stay on the wheel.
Yeah. So, hey, we hope that you've enjoyed it tonight. Our 1160 seconds, like always. This is message probably 40-ish
something.
or something. So
Yeah.
listen, on YouTube, you can go back and watch all of our messages at WhatsApp Video, and on Facebook at WhatsApp Entertainment. I believe the posts stay up, so you go back and at least watch the last 20.
Yeah.
We've been at this for a few years. So, and then always we appreciate you chatting with us live. God bless each and every one. We saw your comments
thank you
today.
so much.
You know,
Lisa, thank you.
Lisa, Shelley, everybody, Ray, all those people that tuned in tonight. So I did promise a giveaway. Let's do something different, because we think that, you know, this message, you know, we're trying to grow our base, and we appreciate every one of you. We're going to ask you to do something for us. We want you to like and share this message, and then everybody that sees this post, we can see when you share it. You know, the person that shares this post the most this week, will all the way up to Sunday night of next week, the person that shares this post the most, we're going to send you a Cash App gift.
What we get?
$50.
$50.
So you got to share it. Let's do a minimum of 4 people. All right, so if you share it with a minimum of 4 people,
they need to do 5 people, $10 a person.
People. 5 people. For 5 people, we're gonna give you up to $10 per person just to share it, and we'll see it on our Facebook page.
And certainly, you know, be prayerful when you're sharing it. It may be somebody that you that needs to hear about God's love. That needs to hear about God's healing and restoration. People are going through in this time. You know what I'm saying? And it's easy to go through in this time. It's easy to be pressed in this time. It's easy for your relationship with everybody is going to be stretched and pressed, with your children, with your spouse, with your mama, with your sister. It's just a rough time in the world, so you're going to be stretched. But God is good, and he is gracious and kind, and he is a mender of broken hearts, and he's a mender of broken things. As a matter of fact, he specializes in things that are broken.
Now Judith done already told we saw her chat, said she's on it already. She's already sharing.
Who did?
Judith McGee.
Oh,
So we appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys next week at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here on Facebook. Follow us during the week on Instagram, WhatsApp Entertainment. This has been Love in 60 Seconds, and we'll see you guys next week. God bless.
Bye.
Well, guys, we have to wrap it up this evening. We really hope that you've enjoyed our conversation.
Yes, this conversation has been amazing, and we want you to tune in again next time so that we can discuss more of these amazing topics and these topics of interest. Then don't forget to DM us, contact us, reach out to us, and we will definitely respond back.
This has been Love in 60 Seconds. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, good night, everybody.